right, welcome to episode number 25, and the title is The Enemy's Strategies. So if this is your first time joining, welcome. My name is Castillo-Wilson. I am the show host, Upscaled and Fully Equipped. So I welcome you, and I'm also the founder of upscaledforlife.com, where I help Christian women that are overwhelmed and stressed out, help them find more energy for their family and to live out their divine purpose. So this episode, I'm actually going to use information from Priscilla Shirer's Bible study that she did. I don't even know what the year was, but the Bible study is called The Armor of God. And if you are curious and wanting to know what her study is all about, you can definitely look it up, but it's The Armor of God by Priscilla Shirer. And it's a pretty in-depth Bible study, and there's also videos that go along with it, but you can just very easily follow the book, and you can do it on your own, or you could do it as a group. But I definitely encourage it because she goes into detail about the enemy's strategies, but also what we are empowered with, and that we get to use the armor of God, and she goes into detail about what each of those pieces look like. And so it's one of those that is worth doing more than once, because you always have a tendency to get a little bit something different each time, and depending on where you're at in life, as well as your walk with the Lord, you tend to view things a little bit different, and maybe they make more sense. But as far as the enemy's strategies, he thinks he's clever, right? And but I don't know if he's gotten the memo yet that God's already won. And most likely he has, but it still doesn't stop him from his little cunning tactics that he tries to put us in front of, or trying to impose on us, or cause conflict within us. And so these 10 strategies that she has in this book were from a group of women that when they were asked the question, what areas of your life tend to get attacked the most, these were the areas that were the most common. And so what that looks like, here are a list of 10, and I'll go into them individually, but just to read them off right off the top here. The first one is passion. Second one is focus, your identity, your family, your confidence, your calling, your purity, your rest and contentment, your heart, and your relationships. So those may be causing some flags for you and being like, oh yeah, I can identify and see that for myself. Or if, what's helpful and beneficial to you is that because you will become aware of these areas in your life that he likes to attack, you will be more aware of when you are getting attacked, and be able to recognize what's happening and be like, oh, this is familiar. I am not going to fall for this. Or you'll be more empowered to be stronger and stand your ground, and know that it's from the enemy and not your spouse or your kids or your employer or what have you, but you can, because these are the areas that he knows he likes to come in and just kind of fiddle with you, then you can identify and know and be that much stronger. Okay, so that is the purpose of having these strategies pointed out to you, so that way when those fiery arrows come to try and attack you, you can be easily identify and be like, oh yeah, I remember that. You're trying to attack this because this is an area that I'm good at, or this is an area that I have struggled with. And so those are areas that he likes to go for, is areas of strength as well as areas of weaknesses. And we definitely have all of those, and some of them, they just look different for everyone. And so as we grow and mature in the Word, and we just put forth our faith and our belief, and we continue to walk forward, then we can gain strength to keep moving forward, as well as to identify when we are getting attacked. So if we go into the first one, which is passion, and we have various passions. It looks different for everybody, but think for you personally, on your personal level, what are the areas of passion for you? And perhaps there's an example that you can just right off the bat here think of, being like, you know what? Yeah, every time I go to do this, and it's my area of passion, I seem to have some conflict around it. So think about that, and in the passions and the area that looks like for you. Maybe it's a passion that you have desire to do have more prayer time. And then when it comes to you going to try and cultivate that for yourself, there may be like a spiritual dullness that comes over you, and that the interest maybe just kind of wanes away. Maybe it's writing. Maybe you're a creative writer and you enjoy that, or it's your outlet in journaling. And so when it comes to that, then maybe there's a dull sensation that comes to kind of take away that creativity, or maybe you become drowsy and sleepy. That could be part of it too. Maybe you enjoy working with the elderly community or with youth community, but when it comes to going and perhaps preparing or going into that work, there's maybe some resistance that comes. Maybe it's resistance from the district, or it's different from the facility that is program. And so it's a matter of just thinking about what your passions are, and seeing how you respond physically or emotionally, but also kind of looking beyond yourself and seeing if there's some type of that supernatural force that is trying to come and attack you, or trying to come against what you're trying to promote as good, because he doesn't want you to go into those territories and spread the love or spread the joy or the hope. So that's why he tries to dull those aspects. And so, like I said, if you're wanting to have more prayer time, he doesn't want you to be in the Word and to know how good your Father is and how loving he is. Okay, so number 2, your focus. Man, I know that I sometimes struggle with this, and there's so many things that to be distracted with. And so to try to maintain focus is challenging, not only as an adult, but our children as well. And so this is used as a disguise and to manipulate also perspectives. So it's almost like shining the spotlight over here when it should be over here, when it should be looked at on yourself, perhaps the spotlight should be on, but yet it's being projected outside to somebody else, or vice versa. Maybe it's, the spotlight is misguiding and disguising and manipulating you to focus that, oh, it's that community, or it's that person, or what have you, when you it should be redirected to where rightfully it should be go to. And so it could put the focus on the wrong culprit, right? Some other focusing could be where you're, again, a dull sensation. It could be fuzzy-mindedness, cloudiness, although that could have some health issues that could be part of why there's that lack of focus. And so that's part of, going on that health journey to try and make sure, okay, am I drinking enough water and I'm full, or do I have, a tummy that's not hungry and, causing me to be distracted, or am I really not hungry, but I'm being distracted because there's something yummy in the refrigerator or what have you. So being easily distracted. So I always call it as, those bling type things, or we could just distract us, something fun and glittery over here when your attention needs to be here, or we call it squirrel, right? So it's like squirrel, if you're familiar with that kids show that had that dog that was easily distracted by the squirrel. The next is your identity, and man, I see this a lot right now in our culture, and that just the identity and just the lack of confidence, lack of knowing who we are, knowing who a person is. There's that confusion and distraction as well that comes on the identity, but it also magnifies your insecurities. That's what he tries to do. So like I said, we have strengths and weaknesses, and so within that identity of identifying what their strengths and weaknesses are, that's where he tries to have you doubt God and have you doubt what he says about you. And so, again, that's kind of like redirecting, again, that focus of your identity. And it also has you disregard tries to have you disregard what God has said about you and has predestined for you. And so it's a matter of having that solid security. And so what I really encourage, and one of my foundations are for when I work with my clients, is definitely to have that spiritual foundation, because that is ultimately your solid rock and your foundation. Because if you try to work at your health and just from the top down, you're going to fall short. There's going to be areas where you keep lacking, but if you have that solid foundation of your identity in Christ, then you can move forward and help overcome the mind and help overcome the body issues. And so for these three particular, already strategies, I think of Romans 12:2, and to help to not become conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So just continue to renew that passion of what he has for you and what he is to you and you to him, and to keep redirecting your focus, as well as understand your identity and to renew your mind to that, and to know that those passions and your identity are to be focused on his word and not what is outside of that. So let's look at number 4, which is family. So if you have a family, whether you have kids or you have a spouse, or your parents and your extended family outside of that, he tries to disintegrate the family. He doesn't like the concept of marriage. He tries to dismantle that with miscommunication, with relationally, with time and what have you. So it's caused a division in the home, right? And so I know I've definitely experienced this for myself, whether it be with my spouse or with my children, or even family members outside of that. I have siblings and, with my parents and whatnot. So it's just a matter of he tries to dismantle the family unity in that aspect. And so what tends to happen then is that there's chaos that happens. And I'm like, okay, is my 3 boys that are arguing and fighting, is that, no, or is that just, them being boys and the nature of the relationships of being brothers? But not all chaos inside the house is is rendered from the enemy. So some of it's just a tendency in the nature of having 3 boys. So keep that in mind too. But some of it does stem with if there is some animosity that the brothers have towards each other, and there's a little bit of chaos because maybe there is some jealousy and whatnot. So ultimately, does that creep in and have a tendency? Yes, it does. But let's look at the dynamic of the relationship as well, but also the family, and it can cause restlessness, right? So if you've ever had an experience that chaoticness in your home, that it's a little uneasy. It's not somewhere that there's peace. And so I know for my home, I definitely try to maintain peace. Like this is where I go, and I want to have maintained, because outside of that, stepping into the world, there's a lot of disheveledness and exterior chaos as well. So we try to help keep the home with less restlessness going on, right? I did already mention the communication, that there's misunderstanding and there's misinterpretation. I know that happens with my husband and I a lot, so it's a matter of just, kind of pulling yourself back and be like, okay, do I need to reword this differently? I need to exercise patience, and what have you. So let's look at number 5, which is confidence. So, as I spoke early about, a little bit in the identity part and our passions as well, that he also likes to remind us of our past mistakes and the choices that we've had, in that there were perhaps bad consequences that resulted from them. And so that tends to weaken and dismantle your confidence and self-esteem. And so that's an area of your life is that he tries to disintegrate is the confidence part. And he tries to convince you that you're not a good person and that you are really still to be ashamed of, and that, you start to perhaps second guess, am I forgiven? Does God really love me? And so there's that whole confidence thing that starts to crumble and rehash some of the past. Number 6 is your calling. So, when you are aware of your divine calling and your purpose in life, and this is what I love when I bring women through the program that I have, that the Lord helped me construct, is that if they didn't understand what their calling is at the time, that by the time that they're done with mentoring, they have a sense of clarity and focus and understand what their purpose is in life. And so when you understand what your calling is and what your purpose is, oh man, he's going to go after you. But it's not to discourage you, to be like, okay, well, maybe it's better not to know what my calling is so I don't get attacked. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that it happens when you start moving in that divine path. Because he doesn't, again, like I said, he doesn't want people to know the love of God or the hope or, the good news. So it's just something to be aware of, in that when we start moving and in our calling, it actually, I know I've experienced for myself, it again amplifies that fear or that anxiety or that worry and the doubt. So that is where it happens up here in the mind, is that the confidence also starts to, maybe I'm not cut out for this. This is too much for me. Well, who am I to think that I can do this? It's like, no, he has this plan and purpose for you. So the enemy just try to lie and amplify certain aspects of worry and fear and anxiety. So, and when that happens, when we are operating in fear and anxiety, we actually don't do anything. We're paralyzed. And so because we think, oh, it's too risky, or who am I to try and, think I can do this and pull this off? I don't have that education or that credential or what have you, whatever it looks like, right? So it's just a matter of to continue to move in his power, which is the scripture that I like for these particular last 3 that I just spoke of, the family, the confidence, and the calling, is from Ephesians 6:10. So to be strong in the Lord and his mighty power. So when you are fighting for your family, you're fighting in his mighty power. When you are struggling with your confidence, you're fighting, be strong in the Lord and know what he's given you. So you're fighting in his mighty power, as well as your calling to be strong in the Lord and his mighty power. So you continue in that direction. The next is purity. So as I mentioned already, like with identity, this is another one that I see he definitely likes as a strategy, and to, with our youth, even with adults as well. And, it can be tempted towards certain sins, and it's not just one particular sin we're talking about for purity, but we're talking purity for our health, physically or emotionally or mentally and spiritually. And so trying to derail you from that is one of those tactics. And so he also tries to convince you that you can tolerate perhaps a particular person or an environment without there being consequences. So say, for instance, if you are, just maybe less than 30 days sober, and your friends invite you out, and then you're like, okay, well, where are you going? That you're going to go out to perhaps a bar, and you're like, wow, okay, so there can be consequences to that, right? Because it's kind of, again, tempting you with that sin, and so this is where he tends to amplify that as well. So keep trying to derail the journey that you're on and keeping yourself pure and sober. It could be like with relationships too. Again, it just depends what the certain what you're struggling with, and what that sin is that you're trying to keep pure in. And so what that actually does is put a wedge between you and God when you engage in it. And so, again, we can use the same scriptures from Ephesians 6:10 to be strong in the Lord and his mighty power. So if you become tempted with that sinful action, then change direction and use his strength and his power to not to go there. And let's see, number 8 is rest and contentment. So this one speaks to, I would say, a lot of the women that I work with, because of, we tend to be, we get stressed if we don't know how to manage it. And then if you're a mother, a spouse, or a leader of some sort, it's like, okay, where's the time for me? And this is a big area that I encourage the women that I work with to cultivate for them, because it's going to be part of that indwelling of that nourishment that they get, whether it be spiritually or, feeding, certain foods and drinks and what have you, but, and feeling content as well. And so if we have a schedule that's overloaded and our life is just overloaded with, just from the time you wake up to the time you, put your pretty little head on the pillow, you're just go, go, go. And then it's like you barely have, you can barely have that peace for sleep or for, re-nourishing your own, then there isn't that aspect of being or having the overflow that comes from you, because you're just running on depletion. And so there's a pressure that to go just continue beyond yourself, and it's like that's exhausting. And we're not meant to just exhaust ourselves, right? And so sometimes you just don't say no to certain things, and you're a yes, yes, yes kind of person. But it's a matter of embracing the self-care and the time as well. And so you want to do that so you can be a good steward and be content of what you have in that aspect. So we can see in 2 Timothy 1:7 says, for the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. So discipline to say yes or discipline to say no, discipline to be content with what you have. So if you're constantly maybe making purchases online or at stores and what have you, and they're really unnecessary, then it's like, okay, having the self-control to not make that purchase, and what have you. So let's look at number 9, which is the heart. So he likes to keep old wounds fresh. And I mentioned earlier about having that amplification of emotions. This is one area where that tends to open. And so the heart can have various emotions, whether it's dealing with unforgiveness and bitterness, fear, hurt, anger, what have you. That winds up carrying into your future if you don't have control of it now. And those are little areas that tend to, those little wounds that can get busted open again. And it's like, the saying of just putting salt on a wound and just having it get exacerbated again. If someone says something to you or has done something to you, it's just like, man, that just caught me the wrong way, and then all of a sudden this untangledness of just starts unraveling it as far as your emotions or just the way you're handling it. And so that's the aspects of our heart. And so that's why we want to keep that mindfulness of the Spirit of God that does give us, He doesn't make us timid, but He gives us power and love. So it's just to try and exercise that love if there's still that unforgiveness, and be like, Lord, help me with my unforgiveness and my bitterness, and help me, forgive this person. We can say that we forgive them, but sometimes it takes a little bit of time for us to actually own it and to have it inside of us, because like I said, that wound can easily be triggered again if that person or environment or what have you triggers it, and then you're like, ooh, wow, I didn't forgive them, because it's opened back up again. So you can definitely ask the Lord to help you with that, and to amplify his that spirit of love and forgiveness. And then lastly is the relationships. So kind of touched on this a little bit when talking about family, but relationships outside of family, it could be in the church community, it can be in just with your friends or what have you. But again, it disrupts the circle of friendships or the relationships that you have. And so it's, mindful to notice when that transpires, and when if there's relationships that are struggling, then it's like, okay, this is an area that the enemy tries to use his tactics and his strategy to dismantle and to cause disruption, definitely. And we see that time and time again, whether it's in the church community or in friends and what have you, but it's just a matter of keeping mindful, be like, all right, is this, a strategy that the enemy is trying to use, or, am I going to try and keep have my own self-control to love this person and to see them through. So those are the 10 strategies that the enemy tries to use against you. Let me know which one speaks out to you, and you're welcome to join the Upscale for Life group on Facebook. Otherwise, welcome to email me at Amber.
The preceding program was brought to you by the Holy Spirit Broadcasting Network, HSBN Television.